Welcome to a special installment of Gals and Goblins, where I, your Goblin Master, Jared Voswinkle, will walk you through the story up to now in a type of audiobook fashion thing. While I will hit most of the major plot points, this retelling will skip many smaller details, as the purpose of this is to refresh our audience and ourselves with the story so far. Now, our story originally starts with 3 unlikely heroes, but there's actually a lot we've learned about the past, and that's where we're going to start. Prologue. The Age of Stars and Conflict. 10,000 years before our story began, a great silver dragon named Ruodon, translated to Silver Star in Elvish, protected the 4 planes of existence: the material, the astral, the spirit, and hell. As threats grew, the Silver Star created new dragons to help in keeping a watchful eye over the planes. The 2 strongest of the litter being a blue, Theodrix, and a red, Syssix. The 2 dragons split the planes amongst each other. The material plane in hell went to Syssix, while Theodrix was given the astral and spirit planes. Stories differ between which side started it, but the 2 dragons began a great and bloody war, which wreaked havoc across all the planes. In the end, 2 mages betrayed and trapped the ancient dragons within their mortal bodies and connected their souls, creating what is called a twin soul. Of the siblings, the older brother was named Timonus. The other mage was Timonus's sister. Her name so far has been lost to history. Timonus had long silver hair, and his offspring all shared platinum blonde hair. The sister of Timonus had fiery red hair, or so the histories say. Before long, the siblings became estranged, with Timonus coming into power as the world's most powerful sorcerer, while his sister vanished to live a life of peace. The years came and went until a new war began, 76 years before our story begins. 2 goddesses had fallen in love: Lunastera, a goddess of the moon, and Astaroth, the queen of hell. Their love gave way to a child who was stolen by Hyperia, the goddess many mortals claim to be the goddess of the sun and who the majority of mortals worship. Legions from hell and the heavens used the material plane as their battleground, but the mortals on the material plane refused to stand by. They formed a coalition of all species called the Golden Order to fend off the 2 armies. While this coalition began with good intentions, there were many at the top who had ulterior motives. Then, a secret organization who opposed the Golden Order stole back the goddess's son. And on what would come to be the final night of the war, this organization, called the Silver Crown, were to hand the child over to a secret village on the coast so he could be reunited with his mothers. This mission consisted of several caravans traveling in different directions as decoys, while one group had the child. Somehow, the carriage with the child was discovered, and Hyperia's angelic forces, as well as demons, descended upon it. An ally carriage arrived on the scene, the riders being an old halfling couple called the Cinderfoots, discovered that the enemies had been fended off by one survivor: a young halfling girl holding a swaddled baby and a club. The Cinderfoots then led them to the secret village and handed the baby to the strange fish-like villagers, and the couple adopted the now orphaned halfling girl. The baby that was taken to the village was to be returned to his mother's, but the goddess Lunastera had disappeared, and the queen of hell had lost her mind. The same night this was happening, the General of Hell, a large black-furred tabaxi with no known name, and his closest ally, a dogman, or Kanai, called Kaiba, were in an intense battle against Hyperia. In the final moments, Hyperia slew Kaiba and was going to kill the General of Hell as well, but was stopped when Silver Briars sprung from the darkness and latched themselves onto her. 3 cloaked figures stepped out. the men being high officials from the Golden Order, Lord Rafa Cloud, a dark-skinned man with a steady voice, Lord Frey, an elf with red hair and a sadistic side, and Lord Booger, a goblin with evil intent. The three men used the briars to trap the goddess Hyperia and take her away. It was revealed this setup had been a deal struck between the General of Hell, who wanted to become the King of Hell, in exchange for his assistance in taking down the goddess. The General told the men of the Golden Order to support his claim when the time came, and if they forgot this deal, then he would slaughter all on this material plane. After these events, to prepare future generations, the families of Eldervale began to send their children to the great adventuring academies on quests of profound importance. However, after years without conflict, these schools delved into shells of their former prestige. These schools being Valkyrie High, a co-ed academy where only the most promising prospects get in, Brimstone Academy for young boys, an all-boys boarding school, Weaselby, a Montessori-type institution where no rules apply, and finally, the place where our main characters attend, Frogmont Adventuring Academy for young women. Book 1. New Friends, Old Grudges. Part 1. Journey to Frogmont. We enter the 65th year of the Golden Era, 65 years since the end of the interplanar war that ravaged the material plane. Now, we meet our three unlikely heroes, Sawyer Cinderfoot, Esta of House Ruidon, and Beans. Sawyer is a halfling and the youngest of three girls in a family where all of the women have attended Frogmont. She grew up in the suburbs of Eldervale and always dreamed of being a professional Arcanoball player, just like her oldest sister Felicity. Esta is an elf and the 15th daughter of the Lord and Lady of Stormbreak, the House of Ruidon, which dates back millennia with their powerful blue dragon magic. Beans is a tabaxi with a mysterious, hellish background and is the youngest of 8 siblings. Our story started out with Sawyer Cinderfoot waiting for her ride to Frogmont and a strange creature called an owlcat bus piloted by a goblin named Gilbo as it arrived to pick her up. Esta had been denied from Valkyrie, which none of her other siblings had been, and would be sent to Weaselby to spend several years, then to move up to Valkyrie to get her degree. But she decided to rebel against her father's wishes and take the owlcat bus to Frogmont. Afterwards, the bus made its way to the forest to pick up their final scheduled student, Morrigan, a kind yet fiery forest elf. Then the bus was on its way to Frogmont. However, on the way, they saw a little cat boy named Beans running through the trees being chased by a dark and scary knight covered in silver briars. The gals decided to swoop down and save the boy and take him with them. However, the Briar Knight did not stop his pursuit, so Gilbo and the Owlcat bus, whom was called Sarah, dropped off the 4 adventurers into the forest and flew away to divert the knight's attention. The gals landed at a pub where they encountered some barbarians with a burlap sack. Fighting ensued, and the gals discovered a little shark boy inside the sack named Pelagius, a.k.a. Big P, who had been kidnapped from his family. The gals then escorted him back to his home in Lorelei Village. This village happened to be where the soon-to-be freshmen of Frogmont gathered to sail to the Island of Schools with the help of their vice principal, Miss Gray, a large hippopotamus woman. To earn their cabin, the 4 gals had to race atop giant fishes against friendly rivals Sapphire, Igneous, and Raven. In the night, the gals heard someone outside their cabin. Sawyer went to investigate and saw Big P get taken by a mysterious dark figure that dropped a Frogmont faculty pin. After some investigation, the gals learned the pin belonged to Sawyer's oldest sister, Felicity, and then headed toward the main hut of the village to find their vice principal and the elder of the village locked away as a demon had killed the parents of Big B and was searching for the small shark boy. The gals defeated the demon and the next morning sailed to Frogmont, where a massive civil war was being fought between girls in green and girls in gold. Once inside, the gals met a human girl named Sabina, who had starry eyes. The gals at orientation were given their uniforms, and in the bathroom, Morrigan heard a demonic voice talking to someone about finding, quote, the child. Also at orientation, we met an elvish man from the Golden Order named Lord Arathis, who would hold a special admin position at the school after the deaths and disappearance of 3 girls the year before. Part 2. Stuck in the Middle with Goop. The gals were now getting used to their new home, despite 3 of the 4 not having paid for the room. So they got the worst room in the school and were ranked near the bottom of class rankings, gaining the rank of 323rd out of 325. The 4 gals tried out for the Arcana Ball team, which was being coached by Sawyer's oldest sister, Felicity. The gals performed well but didn't make varsity, and afterwards they headed to a secret meeting of the Greens, one of the sides of the school civil war. There, the gals learned that a gold, Moray, had allegedly killed a green, Tara Ruidon. Yeah, the same last name as Esta, though Esta had no recollection of her. After the meeting, Sabina helped the gals sneak past the cleaning crew, and that night the gals had their first crazy dreams. Morrigan saw Tabaxi speaking to a woman in red. Esta saw a little girl looking for someone at a party. Sawyer saw her other sister, Jo, riding some kind of diseased dragon. And Beans saw his sister Cherry in a strange place called the Spirit Plane. The gals then settled into Frogmont as they attended their first classes, learned there would be an election to see who would be the student body president, and were invited by Sabina to an after-school party underneath the school in a place that students called the Underschool. At this party, the gals danced until people started passing out from being poisoned, and a person covered in strange black goop attempted to assassinate the leader of the Gold Army, Gracker, and managed to injure Gracker and the leader of the Greens, Talia. Then, the gals were engulfed in an all-out battle as students passed out and a hellish woman ripped through the wall and almost killed Morrigan. Esta unlocked something within herself as she realized a dragon was housed in her soul, and Morrigan was gravely injured from the fight, but was taken back to her village. Sawyer's sister Felicity arrived on the scene and revealed she is a part of the secret organization called the Silver Crown. The next day, Felicity was gone, and the gals were called to Principal Pad's office, where he sent them on a mission to the town of Little Branch to find the cure for the students who had been poisoned. Part 3. The Phantasma Dahlia. The gals were paired up with a team from Brimstone to aid them on their quest for a flower that the school botanist said should cure the students of Frogmont. Chet, Nails, and Wendell took the 3 gals aboard their ship, the Love Boat, en route to Little Branch. However, while they were in the air, the ship was rammed by another flying airship piloted by hellish, hedonistic imps. The gals crash-landed in a forest and were discovered by furbolgs, who took them to their village of Little Branch and to their leader, the Princeps. The Princeps told our party of the powers of this mystical flower, which could replay the spiritual memory of the surrounding area. Then, the village leader bestowed gifts to the gals. To Beans, a small wooden knife. To Esta, a pocket mirror. To Sawyer, a pink sweater. And to everyone, a bag of holding to share. The gals needed to find the engine of their ship, grab a ghost dahlia, and secure the supply drop that the Golden Order had dropped for Little Branch, though there were rumors of a large beast haunting the town and surrounding forest. The gals ventured out into the wilderness and had a dance battle against some horny imps. Afterwards, they found the ghost dahlia, which revealed Big P had passed through the area until Felicity Cinderfoot came by and pulled him away from the flower. The party then headed toward an abandoned church where they heard a scary thumping noise. The noise turned out to be the monster haunting the village and a boy covered in goop. Before they could act, a boy in armor flew down on the scene, proclaiming himself a warden of Hyperia, and attacked the monster. The Brimstone boys identified the gooped boy as Greg, Nails' ex-boyfriend, and the armored lad as Connor, a student who had left Brimstone a few weeks earlier for unknown reasons. Beans found a strange ring inside this church, which turned out to be a place of worship for the moon. And once the monster was defeated, Connor demanded they hand over the ring. He eventually took it by force and fled. The boys took Greg back to the village, and the gals found a cave where Felicity was hiding Big P, wherein they found a book with a story sounding similar to the tale of Astaroth and Lunastera, written by one Grisilla Ruido. The gals made their way back to the village to cure Greg of the goop, which they did by mixing goblin piss and the nectar from the ghost dahlia. Their quest complete and ship repaired, the gals and the Brimstone boys flew back to the Island of Schools. As gifts, the boys gave the gals speaking stones to communicate with each other. Part 4. Betrayal in the Underschool. The gals arrived back at Frogmont and were given a letter saying to destroy the flower. They refused, then immediately ran into Lord Arathis, who, not so subtly, hinted at following the instructions of the letter. Once again, the gals refused. They delivered the cure to their teacher, who began healing the affected students. The team then headed to the Underschool, with ghost dahlias in hand to learn any more secrets. What they saw play out before them was two girls in a black void spending time together until one of the girls, Terra Ruidon, stabbed the void in the chest, while the other girl, Moray Cloud, stood and watched. Then they investigated an abandoned dorm room with hidden religious text mentioning Hyperia and killing Githyanki to create a rift between planes. The gals went to sleep and dreamed of foreboding futures until they woke up and ran to see if Gracker and Talia had any information on what transpired in the Underschool over the years. The clues that everyone collected pointed to one girl, Fia, a transfer from Brimstone. Upon entering Fia's room, they found a tunnel leading to a secret pathway underneath the school. Upon entering the tunnels, they found a large cold door they couldn't open and an old auditorium where Fia lay half-conscious. Before they could interrogate her, the Goop Lady attacked them. The gals pursued the Goop Lady and defeated her, then proceeded to lay ghost flowers around her to reveal her true identity. However, the identity of the Goop Lady was their friend, Sabina. Sabina then shared her memories of being betrayed by Moray and Terra and selling her soul to Astaroth to gain revenge as a revenant. Moray went to the astral plane and Terra transformed into a red dragon and went to the spirit plane. Then Astaroth reached out of the ground and turned Sabina to dust before our hero's eyes. The gals left the Underschool as Fia cleared her name, describing how Sabina had used her in her evil plans to poison the school. And now, the gals found themselves in a web of lies, betrayal, religious fervor, and danger. End of Book 1. Book 2. All That I Know. Part 1. Infiltrating the Hanging City. School life for the gals began moving along once more. Through their reoccurring dreams, they learned that Felicity had taken Big P to the capital city of Astea. In one of their classes, the gals learned that the grand prize of a combat tournament would be tickets to the Celestial Splash Pad in Astea, and thus, day one of the tournament began. In the final fight of the day against their now rivals, Team 3, consisting of Robini, Ren, and Bailey, the battle was interrupted by the horrifying Briar Knight, but luckily a bullywug opened the door to the gymnasium and the light of outside made the knight disappear once more. The gals began investigating the book Felicity had left in the cave about the two goddesses and searched for this mysterious author who apparently lived in the hanging city of Cato and was actually named Priscilla Ruodon. The gals then received their next mission to deliver Pegasus eggs to the aforementioned city of Cato. Coincidence! This time, they would be paired with the School of Weaselby. And the next morning, the gals were greeted by the crew of the Southern Wind, Toby, Lee, and Sawyer's childhood friend, Margie. On the way to Cato, Beans discovered his sister, Apple, aboard the ship. She offered Beans his friend's safety if he handed over Margie. Our Catboy refused, so his sister sabotaged the ship. After some close calls, they landed the ship safely at their destination and met Chet's parents, Maeve and Buddy Weatherfeather, who invited them over for tea. The gals decided to drop off their Pegasus eggs first, but on the way to the stables, they ran into the bodyguard of Esta's father, Curd, who was there to support the governor of Cato, Governor Frey. The gals made it to the stables and met Regia, a nice half-orc woman who they saw speaking to a small elven woman with black hair. The gals delivered their eggs, then headed to the Weatherfeathers, who told them, sadly, Priscilla Ruodon had passed away years ago, but was survived by her fiancé, Sheik. The gals decided to visit Sheik, who invited them in, and then attacked Esta, calling her blue-blooded shit, revealing herself to be, in fact, Priscilla Ruodon. The gals calmed Priscilla down, and she told them of her family side of the great dragon's history, and that the blue Ruodons were hunting down the twin soul of their side of the family. Then the city guards arrived with Curd and took Priscilla prisoner. The gals ran back to the Weatherfeathers to find Margie locked in the bathroom. Sawyer went in to talk to her friend, and Margie confessed that she was a Githyanki and that her family was being hunted. Then Governor Frey showed up asking for a girl, fitting Margie's description. The family didn't snitch, so Governor Frey left and lit the house on fire after saying he had captured Margie's dad. After putting out the flames, though, the Weatherfeathers revealed they were also part of the Silver Crown and took the gals and the Weaselby crew to their fellow agent Regia, the Pegasus stable owner. With the help of Pegasi, the gals infiltrated the governor's tower to save Margie's dad and Priscilla. The gals faced great and dangerous obstacles until they found their captured friends, but out of the darkness, Apple took Margie. Beans made chase, but was stopped by the Briar Knight and Governor Frey. The governor kept trying to trap Beans with the silver briars, just like the knight, and even succeeded in entrapping the Catboy before fleeing. In the heat of the battle, the Briar Knight's rage cooled and made a gesture to Beans that brought the little boy to his past. Beans realized that the Briar Knight was his own brother Porkchop, being forced to fight against his will. Esta made her way ahead, chasing after Curd, who was defending Governor Frey. Since Esta was wearing a mask, though, Curd didn't know her identity and then mortally wounded her and took her captive to Frey's office. The other gals arrived in the office to see Margie being held by Apple and Esta handcuffed to a chair. After negotiations didn't go as planned, Esta saw no other option than to unlock all of her pins and unleash Theodrix to save her friends. The tower exploded along with Esta, and after some dramatics, the gals got Margie and Esta back, but Porkchop, Curd, and Governor Frey fell to the depths below. The gals were saved by their Pegasi and made it back to the southern wind. Esta realized there was another person living within her mind, her aunt, Melina, who was the previous twin soul with Theodrix. Melina locked Theodrix back in his cage and saved Esta. Their small crew of Silver Crown rebels told them they were headed to Raven Rock, the base of the rebels, along with Margie to protect her. And our gals returned back to school with the 2 other Weaselby boys. Part 2. Adventure Academy Election. The gals were back to school, but it was announced after the deaths and disappearance of students across the schools, quests would be put on hold. So, Team 323 made the most of their time by working to get elected as student body officials. The gals were campaigning against their bitter rivals Team 3, Brobini, Wren, and Bailey, and the gals actually made huge strides despite being freshmen. In the end, however, Team 3 sabotaged the ballot, causing themselves to be elected, with Brobini being student body president. August turned to September, which eventually became October, as the months flew by, and the gals learned that Felicity, who had been missing since the night of the party in the underschool, was potentially in contact with Miss Gray. Also, they listened in on a meeting of Lord Arathas's, which included Lord Booger and another lord. And Felicity could be heard in the meeting. Then the time arrived for round 2 of combat class, which they defeated their friends, Team 101, Sapphire, Raven, and Igneous. Towards the end of October, it was announced that quests would be beginning once more. Beans' briars around his arms were beginning to worsen, and they heard that a skilled blacksmith in Fallheim could potentially help him. The gals heard rumors of the top team at Valkyrie being the murderers of students at Frogmont, which led to the suspension of quests. The gals were originally supposed to be on a quest to Duskstar, but Lord Arathas pulled some strings and sent the gals with Team 1 from Valkyrie to the cold city of Fallheim to find a shepherd's lost sheep. Fallheim, which also happened to be the same place where the students of Frogmont went missing. Part 3. A Cold and Hidden Secret. It was now Team 323's turn to pick the mode of transportation, which they chose the large, fuzzy beetle named Sally as their steed. They headed to Valkyrie to pick up their questmates, Levi, Tess, and Cade. The ride to Fallheim was mostly quiet until a large airship began following them and sent a squad of smaller ships with people in gold armor and spectral wings to attack Sally and her passengers. After a dire battle, the gals made it out and landed in Fallheim, which was overrun with Sunshine Knights, the Knights of the Golden Order. The knights told the party that the people of the city were scared to go out, as people had been disappearing. Screams were being heard from down dark alleys, and all of this started several months ago when some students went into the mountain that looms over the city. The gals made their way towards the blacksmith, who could help Beans with his silver briars, but they heard a scream down an alleyway and saw a woman had been stabbed with a weapon covered in goop. The gals eventually found the blacksmith, Marfin, and he told them of a fountain atop the mountain that if you dipped a silver dagger into, could cut the briars. Team 1 of Valkyrie then took the gals to the shepherd, who told them of his lost sheep in the mountain. The party of 6 then ventured into the mountain and found it to hold deep, dark dangers of a forgotten world. The gals made their way through the mountain, met a strange wooden automaton named Germ, discovered strange traps which held them in place, and happened upon their old friend turned enemy, Sabina. Sabina said that she needed their help to get past the Lord of Chaos, and that she would then help them get past the dragon under the mountain. She also dropped the helpful information that Team 1 had killed the Rushgar sisters, the students that had disappeared from Frogmont. The gals went forth and defeated the Lord of Chaos, who ended up just being the shepherd, but then came face to face with an ancient white dragon. The party tried sneaking past the beast, but were discovered as spider-like creatures possessing the dragon caused her to attack. The gals fought the parasites atop the dragon as Team 1 fought back an army of ghouls. Finally, the pests were defeated and the dragon fell to the bottom of the cavern with a thud. Then, a beast older than time awoke, and the gals and their part-time allies readied themselves until the white dragon Adula rose and savagely ripped apart the demon. Then, the dragon carried the party to the top of the mountain to their destination. Team 1 revealed that they were there for a bracelet from Lunastera, which was the same reason Sabina was there. But before them all stood a door. Team 1 grew anxious as our heroes entered the door and saw the most disturbing sight yet: the decaying body of a Rushgar sister on the ground in front of an arch where the bracelet was housed. Then a shadow of Governor Frey appeared and began fighting the gals, which at the same time, Sabina turned and began battling the Valkyrie students. Esta got past the shadow and grabbed the bracelet and vanished. Team 1 defeated Sabina and then turned around to betray Sawyer and Beans as Levi threw a time trap. Sabina luckily saved them, and they all grabbed onto the bracelet. They were transported into a memory 65 years ago on the last night of the war, where they saw Big P get taken to the village, Beans' father fight Hyperia. They saw Esta's aunt Melina have full control over Theatrix, but be betrayed by her brother Timonus, Esta's father. They also saw Lord Arathis betray Lunastera and entrap her with silver briars. After exiting the dream, the groups decided to kill Sabina, even though she warned them she would not be the same upon her return. Then, Levi and his team would go find the remaining 2 Rushgar sisters and get them out of the mountain to safety, while our gals went to the summit to extract Beans' briars. At the summit, the team was met by the princeps, now retired, going by Bib. Bib tells them that the fountain is dried up and will require sacrifices from each of them. Esta offered up a spell slot. Beans offered up his journal he had kept since his earliest memories, and Sawyer, who it was required the most potent of sacrifices, offered up her magical connection to her sister Felicity. The fountain accepted the offers, and in return gave a drop of starlight magic, which they dipped the knife into and used to cut Beans' briars. Not a moment after this, an airship arrived at the peak, carrying Connor, the boy who stole the ring from them back in Little Branch. He ordered them to come with him and meet Hyperia. The gals accepted the offer, as it was very tempting to meet a god, and they had no other way out. Aboard the ship, however, there was an explosion as Team 1 came to save them aboard Sally. The gals made it out and evaded the fleet of Golden Order ships with the help of the Silver Crown. In the midst of the dogfight, Sawyer sent signs to Margie, who was atop the Silver Crown's ship, about the Frozen Toe Ball, which was coming up. In the end, they were both sending mixed signals. The gals arrived safely back to Valkyrie with 2 unconscious Rushgar sisters and Team 1. Levi offered the gals turn him into the authorities, and the gals decided that was indeed the best course of action. Then the gals got some rest, but were plagued by visions of the sky above Astea opening up and a woman in robes with white wings flying down. Part 4. Advent in Astea. The weeks started flying by, as the gals prepared for the final combat class, which would decide if they got to go to the celestial splash pad. Also, there were rumors of a summit being held in Estea during the same time. The gals had their final combat class and defeated Team 3 handily, while Brobini threatened to tell the administrators all of their dirty secrets. Now, it was time for the Frozen Toe Ball, and the gals got their dates, or lack thereof, prepared for the ball. During this time, they connected with Miss Gray, who identified herself as a member of the Silver Crown, and there would be an assassination attempt at the ball to take down the principals of the adventuring academies, but one of the 4 was in on it. The Frozen Toe Ball began, and turned out Beans' date was one of the assassins. Also, Margie showed up in her Weaselbee mascot outfit. During the ball, the gals became too conspicuous with trying to solve who were the assassins, and Lord Arathis asked them to come with him. Once they got to his new office, which was actually Miss Gray's old office, which she had been reassigned, Lord Arathis informed the 3 gals that they were to be expelled from Frogmont and under arrest. At this moment, Margie magically exploded/teleported into the room and saved the gals as they began a desperate race to find Sally and escape the school. Through the school, they were assisted by their friends as they fled Esta's sisters, old rivals, and Lord Arathis himself, who Beans permanently scarred. The gals and Margie were surprised by Team 1 minus Levi at the stables, who asked if they doubt themselves and the decisions they made. The gals are honest and say yes. Satisfied by their response, Tess offered them a whistle to call Sally in a time rune trap made by Levi. The gals escaped and headed towards the celestial splash pad, whereupon they were greeted like special guests and given a suite. After some recon at the splash pad, they met a canine named Trax, who was looking to sneak out of the splash pad and into the sewers of the city, to then meet up with his 2 siblings and invade the summit at Castle Eldervale, because they heard that a Tabaxi family would be there. The gals decided that Trax's priorities aligned with theirs, and Trax then confided in them that his family used to be the guardians of hell, but their ancestor Kaiba was betrayed over 60 years ago by some Tabaxi family, but he doesn't think Beans is part of that same family. The gals and Trax met up with his family and made their way through the sewers to the castle. They were able to eventually make their way into the part of the castle where Esta's father resided. Then they had only moments before the summit began. Esta took the gals to the top of the tower to her father's office, where they accidentally tripped some traps and made a huge mess, summoning a treant and maybe angering a zombified Kurd. But they were able to escape. On their way to the Great Hall, they saw another tower, alone and abandoned, in a garden called the Golden Garden. But the gals pushed on. At this point, the Cani had diverged to pursue their own goal. The gals snuck into the Golden Order summit and saw Lord Rafa Cloud, Moray's father, proclaiming that Hyperia would appear in the Golden Garden this evening. He proposed that they work with the goddess to bring peace and unity to the realm. After this speech, the summit was interrupted by the sounds of the treant and a zombified Kurd, and the gals decided to use the distraction to head to the abandoned tower. Within the tower, they found this is where they kept Hyperia all those years, and that she fell in love with her gardener and had a child who turned out to be Moray, who Lord Rafa stole and placed Hyperia's soul within her own daughter, creating another twin soul. The gals were then discovered within the tower and taken prisoner by Esta's father and her other bodyguard, Schmear, Kurd's brother. The gals, per usual, found their way out of their cell and found their Silver Crown friends also imprisoned and freed them as well. The gals began their escape, but were split up when Margie saw Apple again and ran after her, followed by Sawyer. Esta and Beans encountered Esta's older siblings and fought them off as Sawyer and Margie battled with a morning knight of the Golden Order. Finally, after defeating the knight, Margie revealed
that she doesn't think that she and Sawyer will end up together, as the romantic tension had been building. Because of the whole people hunting for Githyanki thing, Margie didn't think that she would make it long. Sawyer then kissed her, but in the middle of the kiss, Lord Arathis appeared and trapped Margie into a moonstone, which Sawyer swallowed. A crazy moment. Esta and Beans defended themselves against Esta's brothers and sisters, with one sibling siding with Esta. The three eventually met up and made their way toward the sound of howling. Atop a tower, they found the Canine trapped by Sunshine Knights. Then, Beans' siblings, Apple, Orzo, Sardine, and Porkchop, the Briar Knight, showed up. A fight broke out. Beans tore off the briars, freeing Porkchop, but not before Trax's sister, Billy, tore out Apple's throat. Beans, in his rage, transformed and killed Billy without a second thought. Then, just as in their dreams, the sky opened up and Hyperia appeared. The gals were thrown down to the Golden Garden, where Lord Arathis was leading Felicity and Big P towards the dais Hyperia was headed toward. Once Hyperia arrived, she kneeled down, grabbed onto the ring that Connor had given her, which now rested on a necklace, and reached towards Big P. Esta used her pens to dimension door herself and Big P away. Felicity, who appeared to have changed due to Sawyer's cutting her connection with her, then searched Beans and Sawyer to find the bracelet that belonged to Lunastera, and then handed it to Hyperia. Hyperia, now equipped with the bracelet, decapitated the man who kidnapped her and raised her as his daughter, Lord Rafa. In the meantime, Esta brought Big P to her sister Mela, who was leaving Estea to go to her husband's estate. Esta left Big P with her and ran back to the castle. Hyperia began activating the bracelet and hovered in the air when Sabina and Beans' father attacked her. Hyperia got back up and began lifting the castle into the sky. Beans' father and Timonus Ruidon began fighting the goddess, and Lord Arathis yelled to his knights to get the bracelet back from Hyperia. A giant battle broke out, and the gals rode atop Sally to fire at the golden goddess with the cannons fixed to their beetles' back. Eventually, Sawyer threw up the moonstone holding Margie, held it up above her head, then dived bomb towards Hyperia. And as the stone came into contact, there was a great flash, and the gals, Hyperia, Beans' father, Sabina, Timonus Ruidon, and Felicity were thrown into a magical cold vortex. The bracelet was loose, and Sawyer grabbed onto it with the help of a spectral Githyanki hand, and they were released from the vortex and dropped into the spirit plane with no allies. End of Book 2. Thank you so much for listening. I hope everyone is as refreshed as I am. I know I missed a ton of plot points, but I really wanted to make sure that we got this released before the next episode. You know, who knows? Maybe we'll probably do another one of these down the road. I also think a lot of the smaller things that I missed will get reiterated anyway in the episodes, because I don't expect the gals to remember 50 hours of backstory and lore. But I also didn't realize how far we had come until I had sat down and wrote this whole thing out, which was like 15 pages or something. Thank you all for listening. This will be released before episode 60. So if you listen, will be released before episode 59. So if you just listen to this, go ahead and listen to episode 59. You're all caught up. And if you haven't listened to any other episode before this, you missed a lot. You might be able to follow along with the lore. But I mean, hey, you know, if you got the time, we got 58 other episodes there for you. And I mean, like, what, over 100 if you count the study breaks? But anyway, I digress. So thank you so much for listening to Gals and Goblins. Make sure to tune in to the episodes each and every week, main episodes every other week, and study breaks the other weeks. Yeah, thank you so much. See you.